styles are another type of resource. They are applied to a particular target type and can set several different properties at the same time. So I still have my color of my button color being red, and then I added a style where the target type is button, and I gave it a name, X key equals button style 1. And within the opening and closing tags for the style, I added several setters to change the property value. So we have a property equals width request, and I set that at 180, height request at 70, a background of dark gray, and a text color of yellow. And if you look at the app over here on the right, you'll see that second button has been, that style has been applied, and I'll show you how that happened here in just a minute. And then I have another style. This one is called button style 2, and set the width value to 150, the height to 40. Note the alternative way of writing the setter using the value attribute. The background color I set as a dynamic resource to the My Button Color resource we used earlier. And then the text color is cyan. I used a font family of Arial Narrow that I'd added into the font resources, gave it a font size of 18 and a font attributes of bold, and you'll see that applied here to buttons 3 and 4. So in the XAML code for those buttons, on that second button, I simply set the style equal to button style 1. So that's going to include the width and height and the colors for background and text. And then buttons 3 and 4, I set that as a button style 2 static. And I set the button style dynamically and static. You're going to see it's not going to make any difference because we set that background color to be dynamic, and that background color is going to change regardless of whether this is static or resource style, because we set the property of that to be dynamic. The other buttons I left as normal. And we have our button get color again that has a My Button Color dynamic resource for the background color, and we have our image buttons to change that dynamic resource color. So over here, if I change a color, I'm going to click the green. Notice it gets applied to the dynamic resource for BTN get color, that last button, but it's also being applied to button style 2, regardless whether it's static or dynamic. There's blue, purple, orange, lime green. So that is setting explicit styles. We are explicitly adding a style to each of those buttons. We also have implicit styles. I'm going to close my app. I added another page to my project, content page called styleimplicit.xaml. It also contains the C# code behind, which is the same as the code behind we've had in the previous 2 pages. The change I made here was adding in an implicit style into the content page.resources. And the implicit style is no different than the explicit style, except it doesn't contain a name. There is no X key equals button style 3 that you might have expected here. There's no name. And if there's not a name, that makes it implicit style, and the style is applied automatically to any button on the page. If this was application.resources, it'd be applied to any button in the application. So what I did for this style is I set the width request to 250, the height to 50, the background color to black, the text color red, font size is 18, and the font attributes are bold. I applied that style to buttons 4, 5, and 6 by removing the other properties for width request, height request, background color, text color that were there, so that it uses the settings of the implicit style. Now notice on button 1, I still have that information. Width request, height request, background color, text color. That's going to override that implicit style. What I don't have there is the font size being 18 and the font attributes being bold. Those implicit properties will be applied to that button, but overridden by what's in the definition for that button. Now I'm going to change that back to dynamic resource. Let me run this and we can see what happens. So there you see the black buttons with the red text color and wider buttons than the others as being applied by that illicit button style. You want consistency in your design, and styles are a great way to make that happen very easily. And then if you want to change something, it's easy to do that because you just go back and change the color that's being applied. Now, if I were to change this to be the dynamic, I'm going to end my app, and let's set this property to be the dynamic resource. I'll run again. And one problem we'll have here is we have a red background and red text color, so we don't see the text. But if I change the color, notice I'm now changing the implicit style background color with a dynamic resource. You want your design to be consistent on a page as well as from page to page as best you can, with some exceptions. This design of every button being a different color and different text and different font size is not good design. I simply did this to demonstrate how you can use styles in resources. So one more thing, I'm going to end my app. In the resources folder, you have a styles folder. And that styles folder contains two things, colors.xaml and styles.xaml. Let's take a look at the colors.xaml. Here are colors that have been prescribed out of the box. And you can add colors to this and use them. The styles have been set up as defaults for our different views. So you can see here that a box view by default has a value of using a theme. Themes allow us to set an overall appearance for our design, and we're probably very familiar with dark themes versus light themes in a lot of applications. So here it's using a light, here we're using a light 950 and a dark 200 for light and dark themes, and that's the value of our color. So if we look at the gray 950, it's pretty dark. If we look at the gray 200, it's a lighter medium gray. Let's go back to our style implicit XAML page, and all I'm going to do here is add a box view equal to 250. And I'm going to run this. And you can see it's using the dark gray. Now, again, I'm going to stop my app. Let's go back to that style. And I'm just going to change that value on the light from being the static resource of gray 950. Let's change it to, how about the cyan 100 accent? Get rid of my quotes. And now I'm going to run again. And so that default color property of the box view is now that cyan 100 accent for any box I create that I don't change the color of. So you can make changes to your application overall by also changing the styles.xaml file, and you can add in more styles there if you like. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the .NET MAUI Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.